listening to Awake Radio, straight talk for the awake and aware.
I'm sorry, I need to stop you. I got dead air. I'm going to give you another recount in just a second. I'm so sorry. Okay, couple seconds to 5 seconds to go live.
It is heck.
Right.
Okay, you're live.
You could go
guys.
into Skype options and turn down the different tools options. I had that same problem when I was producing. I'm not telling you what to do. It's just a suggestion.
No, it's okay, because sometimes, like, I don't always know how. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Okay, you guys are live. Sorry.
Good
We're
evening.
picking you up.
Oh.
Yes.
Ready? Okay.
Okay.
So, welcome to this Labor Day, Monday edition of Organic News. We're going to be live for an hour, and tomorrow my usual slot will be the normal 2 hours. And we have a special guest who was able to be on live, Chris Emery, who is a co-producer and vice president of marketing of one of my favorite documentaries, State of Mind, The Psychology of Mind Control. And he also helped to create the documentary called A Noble Lie about the truth behind the Oklahoma City bombing. So, Chris Emery, welcome to Organic News.
Thank you so much for the invite. It's great to be on, Catherine.
And I'm glad you were able to be on live, because we actually were scheduled to do a recording, and then I was going to play it tomorrow, but it kind of worked out better this way. Okay, so what was it about this State of Mind documentary that you felt that you had to participate in?
Well, if we could backtrack just about a year and a half, we released a State of Mind Psychology of Control, which is actually available on InfoWars shop at Infowars.com exclusively through October 1st of this year. But that was officially released July 17th this summer. Back in December of 2011 is when A Noble Lie, Oklahoma City, 1995 was released after nearly 13 years of work and research on that with our crew, and we had over 75 people, a core group of 75 people help us. But what we found out, and it was really interesting, the reaction and the feedback we've gotten from A Noble Lie was phenomenal. We're very blessed. It's sold in 25 different countries. We're able to actually accept it into 10 different film festivals, winning Best Picture Feature Documentary in 4 and finalist in 2 others. So we were just amazingly blessed on that. But what we found out after that all was put behind us was that people were still not aware of the bigger picture. Oklahoma City was just one of several events. And as you know, Catherine, as an activist, and you're wide awake on several issues, you have to look at the whole picture. Oklahoma City was just one of the several thousand pieces of the puzzle. But what we wanted to do with State of Mind, to answer your question, was to actually look at that broader picture and go behind the reasons and present the reasons, figure out the psychology, why people weren't aware of what was going on, for instance, with Oklahoma City or 9/11 or the U.S. Navy shoot down of TWA 800, one of the several cases that I was able to work on, and look at the broader picture and say, okay, this is why this is happening. We're smart enough to actually handle the situation, give the people the tools, and at least point them in the right direction. So, as long as they can at least teach their children to think in a responsible way and not get duped by the media or some of the government agencies or just, everyday life. There's always deception going on. And it wasn't taken from a conspiracy point of view. We took it by the facts. Again, we were turning the tables on the powers that be and showing how they were doing it to us, presenting it to the people and say, hey, you know what? We can win at this. We have an upper leg on this. But you really have to be aware of what's going on. So that was the whole impetus behind the movie.
It really does come down to diet and, like an information diet. And if people if people are just imagine, eating chemicals, like the food that we have. I mean, what is that going to turn someone into?
Exactly.
I think of it the same way with the media and news and the information that we ingest. I mean, it's the same thing. It's going to turn you into, a very unhealthy, out of shape, fake person if you have a steady diet of, mainstream media and the crap that the powers that be will feed you, if you're just going to swallow it.
Sure. The first 5 minutes of the movie, we did the introduction. The production value, by the way, on the second one was quantum leaps ahead of what we did on A Noble Eye. And actually, that one wasn't bad. But we were able to really step up our game and present the second movie in a much more professional manner. But one of the first people we interviewed in that 5-minute segment, there was no narration. It was just simply clips from the different interviews we did with I believe we have 14 people in that movie. Eldon Taylor, brilliant psychologist from near Spokane, Washington, flew down to Oklahoma City. We interviewed him here, and we had a chance to spend a full day with him. Just a great guy, very aware, very awake of what's going on. And one of his first comments in that 5-minute vignette was garbage in, garbage out. And it's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Whatever you put into your body, whatever you put into your mind, whatever you feed and nourish your spirit with is what's going to come out. You're a direct reflection of what goes inside you. Yeah. So it was actually very interesting, completely different subject matter than what I had immersed myself in with the Oklahoma City case. And I'm very proud to be part of the team. Yeah, I took a completely different role on the second movie. And but it turned out well, and we're getting a fantastic response. And Alex and his team at InfoWars are just doing a superb job of promoting the movie. We're very, very blessed and very happy to be on board with them on that.
Yeah, I'm a big Alex Jones fan. It's I hear a lot of mixed people have mixed views about Alex Jones, but the thing about him is like. He says what I say. So for me to like Alex Jones, it's not liking Alex Jones. I'm like liking myself because
sure.
He basically, says like so many of the things that I've been saying for decades. I didn't start out. I still don't consider myself to be a political person. I consider myself to be a health person because, in my opinion, health is. Is so much more inclusive. Like health includes everything and everyone.
Sure.
And it's the common denominator that unifies us all. And if it makes it so much easier if we just look at everything in terms of health, like psychological and spiritual, emotional, and everyone has a right to be healthy and to be fully the person, to feel what you feel and have
right.
What's rightfully yours. And to me, health is the key to everything because as that's how the powers that be keep people in line. They keep people like Richard Grove said it in the State of Mind documentary when he spoke about having your feedback loop intercepted. when he talked about, a person just trying to work things out for themselves, put things to the test and figure it out for yourself, that mind-body connection,
Sure.
when you have that interrupted and distracted, that's how, it's keeping people distracted from their bodies. If you can keep a person distracted from their own bodies, then you can, control them.
Exactly. And,
And
it's,
that's health issues.
aside from any congenital or hereditary medical issues, everybody comes into this world pretty much the same with a clean slate. It's the nature and the nurture. It's both that are combined, and we try to touch upon both of those aspects. What environment you're brought up in, and then of course, even if it is a tough environment, whether it be in a lower income neighborhood, that doesn't necessarily mean that your life is going to be bad. It's the people that actually nurture you.
Right.
And how are they wired in, so to speak, and what type of spirit are they powered with? Now, we didn't touch upon, and this was a question that came up quite often. After the movie was released, we'd get emails or Facebook messages. We really didn't touch upon the religious aspect of it because this transcends different, whether it be Christianity or Buddhism or the Islamic or the Muslim faith. It's all the same. We're here as brothers and sisters. We're each other's keeper. I don't care what deity you believe in. What it comes down to is that we're extremely powerful in our own right with the spirit and the mind and what we have. And it's amazing the tools that you have to be, and you could use those for either good or bad. And we're seeing the latest thing with Syria. Unfortunately, our certain elements in our government are wanting to turn the thumbscrews on, damn the information. Well, it's reassuring to see that these other nations and their leaders are coming back and saying not only no, but hell no.
Right.
And that's the whole point of this movie is you have a spirit inside you. How are you going to use it to the best of your ability on a positive note and try to help your brother out? And it's really an inspiring movie, and we're looking forward. We've already got an idea for a sequel put together. I can't elaborate on that, but it's I think this is really going to help a lot of people possibly turn that key, that switch on and say, I don't care how old I am, whether I'm 5 or 15 or 25 or 55, I still have the ability to turn my life around and at least try to do my part to make things a little more positive in this world. Because, this is it. This is where we live. And we have to really look out for each other.
I wanted to, as I was listening to you speak, like I wrote in my blog today about, because to me, money is just another, it's like junk food, in my opinion. It doesn't come from nature. It's man-made. It's not, at this point in time, it's not backed by anything of real value. It doesn't represent anything that comes from nature. And people have been, and it's been used to divert people in the opposite direction of what has real value.
That's right.
And so I look at, fake fiat currency kind of like a poison. It's like a poison in the system, and it's completely, like this what is it? The Syrian chemical.
The Syrian gas.
Yeah. It gets into your nervous system, and it completely, wreaks havoc in people.
Right.
As long as money has gone in the completely opposite direction from and is not backed by anything that comes from the natural world. That's the way that I look at it.
That's it's interesting you bring that up because of the 10 film festivals we were invited to, I was able to attend, I believe, 5 of them. And we were, recognized in the other 5 in absenteeism. But the 5 I went to, I saw one end of the spectrum to the other. There were the filmmakers that really were professional. Most of them were. But there were some that really got hung up on the glitz and the glamour and the limelight. And, that was a year and a half ago. And I've heard of where some of them are now. They just don't know how to keep it in perspective. And that's the most important thing. It's money is a tool for good and bad, but you don't come into this world with any, and you're darn right you're not going to leave this world with any. You have to remember that this life is only it's just a stepping stone among several reincarnations that you're going to have. And I'm not going to get on the esoteric stuff, but it's really true. And I've talked to elders in the Native American community here in Oklahoma and in Texas and New Mexico. And it was a beautiful insight as a filmmaker to see their perspective on life, and was able to do that with the East Indian shamans also, as well as when I was in Australia, got to talk to some Aboriginal high elders there. And it's the same common denominator. These people never met themselves. So I'm thinking, why would they come and all three of these different cultures and religious beliefs, so to speak, come to the same conclusion? They must be doing, there's something there. But what I'm getting at is that's what this movie is really trying to focus on is first you crawl, then you walk, then you run. We're presenting this information to the uninitiated. You and I are up to that speed right now. We can understand this information, but we really wanted to tailor this first movie to help those that weren't aware of a lot of this. But as you watch the movie, you really have to keep it in perspective that you are an amazing energy, both in mental as well as physical. And it's up to you how you want to decide how you're going to handle that energy and that goodness.
Right.
It's anyway.
For a few years, about like 4 seasons, back from like 2001 until 2004, and even before that, though, I was always reading, and always kind of searching that there's more, like we're meant to be more, because I could feel that, the way that I was being raised was kind of like with this, more of a pulling the rug out from under you rather than giving you ground to stand on.
Right.
And I spent time at this place in Rhinebeck, New York. I believe I've mentioned it. It's called the Omega Institute for Holistic Studies, where I first met John Perkins, the economic hitman, back in whatever it was, 2001 or 2. And he was up there teaching shaman workshops on shamanism. And at the time, I had no idea that he was the economic hitman. But anyway, there was always like this sense in to me, and I was always, trying to do things and get people to realize that we're meant to be more, that, to live to your full potential. And I mean, people are seemingly extremely satisfied, and they'll defend, just living so, with much less than they're right to.
Exactly. And I even saw that, if I may. Go ahead.
I'll just make this last point. It's this chase for money and thinking that money is going to bring whatever they're looking for, rather than seeking it from nature and seeking it from, within.
Exactly. And that's the whole point, just keeping in perspective. I've seen quite a bit and if you don't mind, there's only so much I could cover on the State of Mind movie, as we discussed earlier. So, but my background in radio, television, and film for 32 years, I started in 1981. And I saw how the network news put together their stories. I was very fortunate to be able to contract with a major network for 4 years in the early 1980s, starting working on the set, then doing copy edit for some of the newscasters, some of the folks that did feature stories, whether it be on the morning or the PM news, and then working on the sets, and then actually getting behind the camera and in front of the camera to do production. That carried me on into doing small documentaries, biographical documentaries, commercials, and so forth. Oklahoma City was the first feature-length documentary film that I was able to work on with, at a length. Before it was maybe 30 or 45 minutes. This was a 2-hour film. Mm. We had enough information on that to gather it over the 13 years. And I take that back. Actually, it extended to within a few days after the bombing. So it was about 17 years worth of experience or of research. I was on it for 13 years.
Wow.
But it was enough for a 6.5-hour movie, and obviously we looked at each other and says, there's no way we're going to market a 6.5-hour movie. So we had to take the best of that 6.5 hours. And even with the 2 hours, we still have another hour and a half of cream of the crop stuff.
Yeah, make it in 2 parts.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're going to carry over in what is called the director's cut. It'll be released, we anticipate, April 19 of 2015,
oh, wow.
which will be the 20-year anniversary. So we're looking forward to that. And there was information that has come our way even after the movie was released. There's one tidbit, an interesting story, and I don't have any problem sharing this because we have the witnesses and the documentation and so forth, and we have them on camera. A nephew of a former governor of Utah was approached by Tim McVeigh 4 months before the Oklahoma City bombing. Working under the guise of the ATF and a joint task force between the ATF and the FBI, McVeigh tried to recruit this individual to do the exact same thing that happened in Oklahoma City, except it was going to happen in Denver in 1994. And this individual refused. He knew he was being set up. So McVeigh knew full well what he was doing.
What were they going to blow up in Denver?
They were going to blow up the federal building there.
Oh, I see.
But it didn't come to fruition because this particular guy pretty much kept blowing McVeigh off. He was working under the alias of Tim Tuttle, and that was an alias that was revealed within days after the bombing. And this individual realized that that's exactly who he was dealing with. And then, of course, he saw McVeigh's mugshot. But McVeigh was working for the CIA for a full 2 years for the Oklahoma City bombing. He started in early 1993. He was running drugs, and he was a professional assassin. That's not even up for debate anymore. We've seen the documentation, and it's in the records that the defense team was able to get through discovery process. So they knew darn well who they were dealing with here. But he had about 4 different personalities. And I saw, and it was very, very disconcerting as well as somewhat surreal, when I went down to the archives in Texas, and I'm not going to name exactly where they are because the FBI tried to abscond with them, and this particular institution said, get out. You come back with a warrant, we're going to give you copies. You're not getting the originals. Now get the hell out, which was good on their part. They kicked the FBI out. But the FBI didn't want those documents to see the light of day. We saw them as a film crew. So we know the whole story behind this. Go ahead.
Can I ask you, how does it work? I mean, do people start coming forward and then you say, yeah, let's make a documentary about this? Or do you have it in your head, we want to make a documentary about the Oklahoma City bombing, and then you start looking and finding people?
Well, actually, that's a very good question, and I'll try to be as concise as I can. Who we feature in the movie, and I think you remember this, Charles Key, Dale Phillips, VZ Lawton. VZ has since passed on since the movie was released. And then there was another individual, George Wallace. You have a multimillionaire in the insurance business. You have a state representative at the State House at the time, Charles Key. VZ Lawton, retired employee of HUD, who came within an inch of his life of being killed in the building that morning on the 8th floor. And George Wallace, a retired U.S. Air Force colonel. He knew ordnance. He dropped bombs, in the Korean War. He knew what blew up and how to take down aerial towers and so forth, and bridges. So it was amazing to see this convergence of 4 different individuals, completely different lifestyles, coming together as complete strangers. And they all knew that there was something horribly wrong with the storyline. That happened within about a month and a half, in June of 1995.
Right.
I came on board after seeing this, reading the final report, which was released 3 weeks before 9/11. I saw the manuscript in May of 2001. And I got in touch with Charles Key as a filmmaker. I says, I was able to see raw footage that was given to me on a SVHS master, 2 hours and 45 minutes of raw footage. And about 45 minutes into that raw footage, I says, my God, this storyline is completely upside down. There's stuff on here that I'm seeing that I've never even knew about. So after playing phone tag for about a month, I got a hold of Charles. And we finally met in Oklahoma City. And I was living in Fort Worth at the time, about a 3.5-hour drive south of Oklahoma City. 14 round trips, and I finally made the decision to move here. There was no way I was going to be able to work on this film. Yeah. But what we agreed upon, and we became friends instantly because he knew that I had the background in the film business.
And what was his name again?
Charles Key, Key. He's a former state representative, very well respected. In fact, he told me after the movie was released, he'd be going to these different speaking engagements around the country, and people walk up to him and commend him on the movie. I mean, we were getting recognition indirectly because they knew that he was doing the right thing from day one. Now, there's a backstory to Charles Key. There's a backstory to Hoppy Heidelberg, who's in the movie, former grand jury member. There's a backstory on the black police officer, Terry Akey. And I got to know their family members. But to move here to Oklahoma City and look at all of these different facets of the case and the backstories, we could do 4 movies within the movie. I mean, that's how much fresh material and virgin territory that we touched upon.
I mean, yeah, the information probably just goes so deep, and
It does.
like
It does.
just like just like anything else.
But to answer your question, Catherine, it was a preponderance of information. The book came out; it sold very well, but that was it. It pretty much the sales went flat after about 4 or 5 years, and then the next thing was, okay, how do you reach a broader audience? You got 2 choices, and I remember Charles and I having dinner, sitting down, talking about this. He says, "All right, we've got enough material to write a second book." And it just so happened the girl that put the manuscript together on the first book wrote the instruction in manuals and policy manuals and white papers for the top commander at the Air Force Base here in Oklahoma City. She was the cream of the crop as far as the writers. You couldn't ask for a better assistant to help out. She was able to get us in touch with people on the base that had so much intel on the case, from search and rescue to debriefings. I mean, it was amazing. It was just, it was like opening walking into the opening of Alibaba's cave, so to speak, and just seeing the gold lay there. You really had to, you had to figure out how to disseminate this information.
Yeah, so all the information was just there, like kind of waiting.
Absolutely. And when I moved up here, I was very humbled. I didn't know a lot of these people. I knew the committee, and one by one, I got to meet the family members, search and rescue, law enforcement, local, county, state, and federal level. They had their jobs threatened. They had their lives threatened. They were very upset.
Well, like
very upset.
What did they know though? Like what? Why would they be being threatened? Like what was it?
Well, to put this in perspective, within 4 hours after the bombing, there were how do we count them out here? I think there were 24 C-21 Learjets on the tarmac at Andrews Air Force Base, fueled up, ready to fly the president, the cabinet, anywhere they needed to go in the world because of a nuclear disaster or whatever. Those are waiting at Andrews Air Force Base. Out of those 24, 14 came to Oklahoma City. Why would 14 jets from the presidential fleet in Andrews Air Force Base fly to Oklahoma City? That was a huge red flag, and I got this intel from a retired officer at the air base. Mm-hmm. He had the flight logs, he had the fuel allocation, he had all of the information on when those planes touched down and when they took off from Andrews, when they touched in Oklahoma City. Huge red flag. Who are they bringing in? They were bringing in the top dogs from the FBI, from the DEA, from the CIA, Naval Intelligence, Air Force Intelligence, and there were 5 agencies we never even knew existed. I mean, whoa, where did these guys come from? That doesn't happen when you have an ANFO truck blow up in front of a federal building. This case was huge. It was much bigger than anybody knew, at least from the mainstream media and the narrative. And the government did not want you to know the full scope of what was going on here. You don't have those resources allocated from Washington flying in on the presidential fleet if there's not something horrendous going on here. And that was it. That's what pretty much blew the door open for me. And I says, all right, that's it. We're throwing the gauntlet down. We're going to go through this methodically, and we're going to talk to people that were boots on the ground. Answer your question, local law enforcement was threatened by the top dogs from the FBI and the DEA and the CIA to keep their mouths shut, because there was ordnance in that building that was going to bring the entire building down. ANFO was nothing. It was just a false flag. In fact, we don't even think there was even ANFO in the truck. There's a preponderance of evidence to show that there was nothing in that truck that even resembled the official narrative.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was horrible. Absolutely horrible. And these people, and it's just a select group. I'm not talking about the government in general. There's a lot of very good employees on all 4 levels of those law enforcement that I told you that basically leaked information to us, or would send us information hints through email. Are
you saying that I forget if it was a Ryder truck or whatever, the Hertz truck, there was no ammunition in there?
There was ordnance in there. It blew up. I mean, I'm not questioning that, but it was much more horrendous than ANFO. In fact, there was Mother Nature really threw a wrench in the works on the whole thing. That morning, it was crystal clear, 42-mile-an-hour winds coming into the building. The explosion happened, and there was a device in there that actually created an invisible mushroom cloud that sucked up so much air out of the downtown within 4 square blocks. It literally sucked the trash off the streets up to over 400 feet in the air, including all of the paperwork in the Murrah building and any building that was blown up within about 4 blocks. And I got that from the fire department. They were finding papers from the Murrah building a good 8 blocks away after this mushroom cloud dissipated.
Wow.
It was a subnuclear device.
And
It wasn't. It was meant to actually kill within a certain range and destroy buildings within a certain range, and that was it. There was very little radioactive fallout.
so then, right, Timothy McVeigh would have had to be, some kind of person to have, access to that.
Exactly. This is high-grade military stuff from the Aberdeen Proving Grounds in Maryland. In fact, the device that was in there has been traced back to one that was actually one of 5 that were in there, top secret. It was called the Blue Angel of Death. They had the Proving Grounds out in Morton Thiokol Proving Grounds out in Utah. They do all of the research for the NASA rocket engines. And remember, Morton Thiokol was implicated in the faulty O-ring disaster. Back in the Challenger disaster back in 87, 86. Anyway, their proving grounds, there were 7 scientists that took this one of these 5 subnuclear devices, and not subnuclear. It was a smaller nuclear device, but it didn't have the radioactive fallout that a massive nuclear device would have. Out of those 7 scientists, 3 of them were completely gone. They couldn't even find any traces of them because it got out of hand. It was so powerful. One of those went off, we think, in downtown Oklahoma City. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrendous. And that's why you're getting all these top dogs flying in from Andrews Air Force Base. They're saying, oh boy, watch out. And within 4 hours, they touch down, and they're barking out orders to tell our fire department what to do, the local and county sheriffs what to do, the state highway patrol. And these guys, and to put this in perspective, and it took me a while to realize, you don't have your colleagues in law enforcement telling you what to do, especially when your friends and your family and your kids and people that you know personally are just killed in cold blood. And you're going to come and tell them how to do their job? That doesn't wash right. And it never did here in Oklahoma City. I mean, that's one thing the media did not get across.
Don't they think that that's going to sort of alert people to?
Absolutely. It was the reverse effect. And it was to our advantage as filmmakers to really be empathetic to these law enforcement people and the search and rescue and the government officials, both military as well as civilian.
See, but that's what's so backward. Obviously backwards. Is that it's the people that are there. I mean, it's the people that experience it that know.
That's right.
That's
right.
Right. That's what just makes me. Gets me so aggravated.
Well, you had the same thing happen, I know, in New York on 9/11, and I cried. I'm a grown man, but I cried when that happened because I knew which people were going to go through. And
I used to be an EMT for the fire department in New York. I did it from 94 to 2000. And I mean, I had an overwhelming feeling. Something really strong was telling me something big is going to happen. You better leave this job in 2000. I mean, I had that sense. You
have the synchronicity, and
not that I claim to be any kind of a psychic or anything, but it's just the way that that things are run, and it's about money. It's not really about helping people. It's a revolving door kind of a system, and that I just feel like I can't be a part of.
That's right.
And
now, like I said, in all of the interviews I've done over the years regarding this movie, before and after it was released, I have to qualify that I have the utmost respect for the people in the law enforcement and the military community that came forward. They couldn't do it themselves for just a variety of reasons. There was a classic example. And George Wallace on the bombing committee had intimated this to me several years ago, shortly after I'd moved here. He said there was a retired Army CID officer, Criminal Investigation Division. That's the military's version of the FBI. He was retired. He'd served many years in Vietnam. And he would go in and actually do what they call bomb damage analysis, or if there was a criminal scene, whether it be for murder or whatever, he'd have to go in and analyze it. And then they would write their position papers or white papers on it and present it to the Pentagon or their commanding officer. He walks down to the bombing site. And he just, showed his credentials. They let him in, gave him a hard hat and a badge. And he had a minder or an escort from the FBI with him. And he started asking questions. And about 10 minutes into the tour, the FBI agent says, turn in your hard hat, go back to the command tent, turn in your hard hat and your badge. We don't want you here again. And oh, by the way, we know where your wife works. We know where your daughter goes to college. We know where your grandkids go to school. Keep your mouth shut. and he just laid on a line of profanity and told this guy to get the hell out of there. That's who we were dealing with. That's the people that wanted the story on this narrative to go one way and one way only. And that's no way to do an investigation. They were lying from the word go.
Exactly.
So, but it was some of their colleagues that knew what was going on, and they wanted the truth to come out. Those are the benevolent ones, and we trusted them with our lives. We had no choice. After we vetted out their information and realized they weren't jerking us around, then they really helped us out.
So, I mean, it's the truth just has to come out then, obviously, because these people, the FBI, I mean, all these people that come in and they try to bully the investigation. I mean,
it was the folks from Washington, especially the local FBI office here. We three agents in particular were very upset.
They show their guilt, though. I mean, like the point, like I'm trying to sort of get at is that they show their guilt just by this way that they behave of like coming in and just trying to tell everybody and suppressing rather than working with the local law.
The truth, and one thing that the powers that be, we call them, some of them, the evil geniuses. These are folks that are running a parallel life of morals, of existence, and it's a very small rogue element of the government. But
it's because people are chasing the money. When you
exactly.
I mean, like that's what I mean. Like I have to just tell you my favorite line from the movie Jaws, where Chief Brody says to the other two guys while they're on the boat, why don't we start leading the shark back to shore instead of him leading us out to sea?
Exactly.
I love that line, but it's like that's what happens when people are following the fake money. I mean, like, because money is fake and it is detached from anything of real. It's not backed by morals, obviously. So people are forced to give up morals. I mean, because money is in fact a note of debt. Isn't it reason to say that you're going to have to behave in debt ways, debt behavior, a debt morality in order to have money? I mean, that's not hard to figure out. In my
a lot of people aren't able to make that distinction. You nailed it on the head. So, yeah, it's interesting. Before I moved here, I was living in New Mexico for a year. I had a chance to live up in the mountains outside of Albuquerque. And there was a journalist with the Albuquerque Journal, a writer there that knew that I was working on the movie and anticipated I'm moving here. And he put me in touch with a public information officer at Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque. It's the only base at the time. I don't know if this is still true, but this was back in 2003. The only base at the time, U.S. Air Force Base, that actually housed the dismantled nuclear warheads of all of the ICBMs and so forth that we had pointing toward Russia and whomever, and all the missile silos in the northern U.S. and in Colorado. All of the warheads were buried at 11,000 feet under it. Well, there's 8,000 feet of mountain there, so they don't have to go down too far. But anyway, I found out it was that same facility that there were unexploded ordnance devices flown from Tinker Air Force Base 2 o'clock in the morning after the Oklahoma City bombing. This is on April 20 of 1995. In a modified C-21 Learjet, had most of the seats out and had these huge coolers with dry ice. And these devices were flown to Kirtland Air Force Base, dismantled. They knew exactly where they were made, where the materials came from, when they were made, how much they cost, the entire MO. And they were able to find out, and I got this through some back channels, that they wanted me to get this information out. We couldn't present it in the movie because we didn't have the documentation, but I know I saw it. I mean, it was my eyes. I saw this and talked to these guys. The Irish Republican Army, you had a terrorist group out of Brazil, you had a faction of the Medellin drug cartel. There were a lot of thieves lining up. Very bad people lined up to make sure that building went down. It was honor among thieves, at least for that month and a half up until the bombing, and then they went their own way again. Because there was a huge drug case that was due to go to federal court on May 10 of that year. The Clintons were going to be indicted by a congressional committee. They were going to go to prison. Bill Clinton would have seen a second term. Yeah. There were a lot of people that had a vested interest in making sure that building went down. McVeigh had very little to do with it. In fact, he was actually double-crossed. building was supposed to be blown up at 9 o'clock in the evening the night before. It was his handler, Larry Potts, number 2 in the FBI, that told him to go live at 9 o'clock in the morning. They wanted a body count. McVeigh hit the roof. He says, that's not the way I work. I'm not killing children. He says, I might be an assassin, but I'm not a butcher. And they told him, no, you're going to follow our orders. And then it just all hell broke loose after that.
So, right. So they didn't even truly have McVeigh on.
He wasn't even on board. Nope. And he thought he was going to get off scot-free. That's why he hung out a good 14 to 18 minutes after the bombing in downtown Oklahoma City. Whoever Charlie Hanger stopped on I-35 and pulled over in the Marquee, that wasn't the real McVeigh. We had 2 teams actually working. And they thought, okay, well, a bunch of hooey. And I says, no, that's textbook CIA. That's what you learn in Langley, Virginia. That's who you send over to work overseas to do these dastardly deeds, whether it be in Nicaragua or Honduras or the Philippines or wherever. So we were dealing with professional assassins and the rogue side of the CIA on this case. No question about it. That's not even up for debate anymore.
I mean, this just, it just is so, I mean, to me, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, I'm listening to you, I'm getting all this information, and, I just think of, I mean, a lot of times, families, spouses cheat and this, that, and the other thing, and a family member will be in denial, like they don't want to believe that their family is cheating or whatever,
Sure.
So so I don't understand, why is it so hard to believe that all this stuff is going on a larger scale when people experience it right in their own personal lives, like every day. I mean, it's to me it's guaranteed that there's so much of this kind of stuff going on in the world, because, sorry, something just distracted me.
That's okay, go ahead.
And, I don't understand, like, why it's so hard for people to accept that, right, McVeigh worked for the CIA, that, it's their own government and stuff that's doing things like this. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
It's very hard to digest because you're indoctrinated like we did in the second movie, and you bring up a very good point. You learn your history, whether it be in elementary school or high school, and you think that's the way the world runs. Throw whatever you learn in that, with the very exception of maybe a few stories, throw it out the window and start all over again. And that's the whole manipulation. That's the control of your education, of the world that they want you to perceive.
It's just again, like a constant perpetuation of the debt mentality. Like, people just continue to do the same thing over and over and over, rather than, live in reality, accept the reality, and begin taking steps to, to wake up and change your course.
Well, the latest thing with Syria, it's a classic example. Enough people, even the British Parliament, are saying this doesn't even pass the litmus test by any stretch of the imagination.
This is what I'm saying. It's getting so ridiculous now. I mean, it's, and the fact that it is getting this ridiculous goes to show you that, how the people are allowing it.
I would a couple of suggestions, if you don't mind, and I understand, I guess your producer said we can extend the interview here if you would like. I'm not sure what you have in mind, if you want to keep somebody else on. But what I would suggest is whatever story that you hear from the mainstream media, don't believe it. Just try to do your own research. There's enough good independent sources out there, such as what really happened with Michael Rivero. InfoWars, huge, cache of information there. Alex, I know several people on his staff. Those guys, bar none, are some of the best in the business, and they worked for the mainstream media at one time. Darren McBreen was out on the West Coast. David Knight. I mean, those guys are awesome. Leanne McAdoo. I know them personally. They're great people. Rob Dew, several of his producers.
Yeah, I met Rob and Alex Jones at a talkers conference here in New York.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, they've got a great staff there. Let's see here. Oh, there's another gentleman from Tulsa, Jakari Jackson. He really supported us in promoting our film. So But those are you have to go to the independent media. Do not, under any circumstance, believe the mainstream media unless it has to do something with sports, or whatever, some
Or the weather, even the
powder
weather
puff stuff.
isn't right.
Right. But we had feedback from our media here. And I would be out at a 7-Eleven filling up gas or at a basketball game or a dinner. And some of the correspondents that actually were on boots on the ground, they were stringer photographers and cameramen the morning of the bombing, would pull me aside. I'd be out in the parking lot or, I'd meet them on my way to the hostess stand to pay the bill. And they said, look, we love your movie. I just wish we could have done this 16, 17 years ago, but I would have been fired. I mean, it's the same narrative all the time. And I look at them and I says, you know what? I appreciate the support and thank you. I don't drop the guilt trip on them. Hell no. I understand. I empathize with what they've gone through. But they just didn't have the time and the resources to do it, and they were very happy that our film crew at least had that, and we were very blessed to have that opportunity. But, I mean, we can go on all kinds of different tangents here. There's so much more to the story.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just kind of wanted to get a little bit into more of McVeigh working for the CIA.
Okay.
And, for how long, and, and so, I mean, he was obviously, still working for the CIA when this whole thing...
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the fact that he recruited the nephew of the former governor of Utah, I mean, how crazy is that? Here you have, one of the top 50 leaders in the United States, and his nephew is recruited by McVeigh. Are you kidding me? This is just the way circumstance presents itself. And granted, this guy had a rap sheet. He was dealing in arms and drugs, but the whole impetus was McVeigh said, look, we're going to pretty much just wash your record clean if you do this work for us. And this guy says, no, absolutely not. And he went and served his time in a county jail, and the feds couldn't touch him after that. But it was crazy.
Right, so he wasn't working for the CIA. I mean, he was...
Well, McVeigh was working for the CIA, yes.
Right.
Is that what you're referring to, or the other guy?
No, I was referring to Timothy McVeigh, but,
right.
I mean, he was a criminal, or, at first.
Actually, I'm speaking of the gentleman that McVeigh tried to recruit to bomb the building in Denver.
Okay.
The nephew of the governor. McVeigh actually was in the U.S. Army. He was a sharpshooter. He was on General Schwarzkopf's security detail in Iraq. He was one of the best. He could take a target down, take it out 1,500 yards downrange with a 50 cal.
Really?
Amazing. In fact, he got several awards. One of those awards, you talk about adding insult to injury. He was in the the federal lockup awaiting trial in Denver, and the Army was actually obligated to send him one of his sharpshooter awards from the Persian Gulf War.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so here he is, ready to go on trial for a brutal murder case, and he's still getting awards. On his death certificate, when he allegedly was put, in lethal injection at Terre Haute at the death row there, on his death certificate, and we lined this out in the movie, his occupation was U.S. Army. Well, he was already out of the Army for 2.5 years by that point. Actually, I may take that back, for over 5 years, because he was executed in... hold on here. He left the Army in 1993. He was executed in May of 2001. So he was out for 8 years, and they still listed that on his death certificate. What the hell's that all about?
Yeah, he did get executed, right?
Well, here again, we don't know. And that's not, we're not saying that as conspiracy theorists either. We've had some retired police officers come forward and give their comment on it. How do you recruit somebody from the CIA to do the work he's done, to stick his neck out like he did, and then they get executed? The line for recruits is going to dry up real quick if you start putting these people to death.
Yeah.
So what we think is, in fact, the federal government, James Nichols, Terry Nichols' brother, sued on behalf of Tim McVeigh's birth dad to get Tim McVeigh's body to have a proper burial. The federal government refused to give him the body at the Terre Haute execution chamber. They gave him an urn. They don't even know if those are the ashes of Tim McVeigh. They cremated him right there.
Right. What do you think happened to him?
I think he's alive. And he's somebody that's worked in this business for, like I said, for 32 years.
And not in jail anymore.
No, absolutely not. He's under a witness protection program somewhere.
Yeah.
That's the way they work.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it's and that just as soon as you understand, and it took me about a year and a half to really figure out who these people were, and I'm going to be the first to admit I don't know all about them, but as soon as I understood who I was dealing with, it made my job a lot easier as a filmmaker. It's like, okay, I'm going to put myself into their head and figure out how they would do things. And by God, if we weren't getting information coming out of sources we had no idea that even existed, and it was the synchronicity was amazing, absolutely amazing.
It takes a lot of stretching on your part. I
It
mean,
scared the hell out of me, Catherine. I tell you what, it really scared the hell out of me. There were several times I wanted to walk away from this case,
I bet. I mean,
and
like,
I didn't know.
um, you know, like that again. Like that's how, and it will continue. Like they'll just continue to do what they do as long as the public, your average civilian can't wrap their head around the fact that these people do what they do.
That's right.
I mean,
and that's just like I said, and that hopefully that's what our second movie will give the tools to do. And Infowars has been doing it for years, but they're just really.
I mean, I would like to
up the
work
game
with
now.
Alex Jones if you could put in a good word for me. I mean, I really feel like I've been awake for my entire life. I mean, since since I was younger than 10 years old, and I spoke out a lot at a really young age, but I got punished for it, unfortunately. I just grew up in that kind of an environment,
Right.
and so unfortunately I really learned to suppress myself, and and that's how I knew though that something was wrong. I should be encouraged to be saying these things.
Well, now you're an adult. You're a responsible adult. You're doing a great job. You've got an outlet. You've got a great radio show here with Paula. And this is the time to seize the moment.
Right, and also teaching other people though, because most people are living that way, that they don't feel like they have the right to know things, to speak out on things, or they feel like it's not going to matter. It
does matter. It amazing. It does. And I'm a classic example. That I've got several film colleagues that thought that they couldn't make a difference, and we came together as a group. You've got some great people in New York City there. Luke Rudowski, Danny Penzella, Carrie Accardi.
Yeah.
My God, you got a great with the. We Are Change Foundation. So
if I could, you just made me remember that I wanted to, announce on the radio that tomorrow I'm not exactly sure of the time. At first, I read that the time was 5 p.m., but that might be changed. But there's going to be an unveiling in Times Square of a 9/11 Truth billboard.
Yes, the AE Architects and Engineers for 9/11, right?
Right, the Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth are unveiling a billboard in Times Square in New York City. Right, at first, like I said, I read the time was 5 o'clock, but now it's an unconfirmed time.
Right.
And then also the official sort of unveiling of it, or it's supposed to actually happen on 9/11. They're putting it up tomorrow, but
right.
the actual kind of ceremony is supposed to be on 9/11 at 5:20 p.m., the time that World Trade Center 7 went down.
Okay.
And is that like
5:23 or 5:28 in the evening? I'd have to go back.
Right, 5:20 p.m. in the evening was when that's hours and hours after the first two towers went down. But
okay.
that is significant. So my plan, I hope it works out, is to do my normal show, which I do on Tuesday, there from Times Square. Because they want people to come and bring cameras, and so Luke Rudowski is supposed to be there. I believe Danny Panzella. I kind of asked him. I don't know. I hope he's going to be able to go too.
Yeah. Now, is Danny? I believe is he from Philadelphia? Is that correct? Or
No,
does he live there?
he
lives in Brooklyn.
Lives on Staten Island.
Oh, okay, got it.
So anyway, I think maybe I'm just going to come up. We'll take a short break and let Paula play a tune. And how much time can you spend with us?
I'll be happy to spend another 20, 25 minutes if you want. Then I'll probably have to wrap it up shortly.
Okay. Sounds great. So we're going to go to a break.
You see what sending out them negative waves did, Moriarty?
But oddball, I keep trying to tell them.
Sure.
But I do. I keep trying to tell them, but they won't listen.
Oh, man. Don't hit me with them negative waves so early in the morning.
Well, I can't force them to listen.
Always with the negative waves, Moriarty. Always with the negative waves.
Oh, oddball.
There you go. More negative waves. Have a little faith, baby.
Why don't you dig how beautiful it is out here? Why don't you...
Okay, so we're back with Chris Emery, co-producer of the documentary A Noble Lie on the Oklahoma City, the truth behind the Oklahoma City bombing, and more recently, the State of Mind documentary, The Psychology of Mind Control. And so before we went to the break, actually the first thing that I wanted to do after the break was, go to the links.
Okay.
And
yes.
Where all this information can be found, websites and...
Okay, we do encourage the listeners to go to State of Mind Movie. Just simply type in www.stateofmindmovie.com. That will actually default to the InfoWars shop. And Alex and his team have exclusive rights to sell that through October 1st. Beautiful layout, give you all of the graphics and everything. And first time that Alex has actually offered a movie in Blu-ray. The production quality and the color is, and you can attest to this, Catherine, was so high-end and high quality that Alex actually ordered both the standard version and the Blu-ray version. Blu-ray is selling very well. Anyway, it's on that particular page, stateofmindmovie.com. It'll go exactly to the page. If you scroll down to the bottom of that page, you'll see what is called the Free Mind Film Special. Alex is still selling A Noble Lie, Oklahoma City, 1995, very well. And we're very honored to have both of those sold there. And he gives our film crew a very, very nice promo, a good props on that. So thanks again to the whole team down there. If you want to go straight to our website, www.anobleeye.com, we will also have additional pictures as well as small interview clips and quotes from some of the people that we interviewed in the movie, as well as the 4 Best Picture Feature Documentary Awards. And so anyway, a couple options, but we do encourage you to definitely support the team at InfoWars. They're doing a super job for us.
Yeah, Alex Jones is, a lot of people don't believe that he's real.
If I may interject just for a second.
Yeah.
And this is certainly not patronizing anybody or, not brown-nosing, but I've known Alex for 7 years. I've gone to dinner with him. I've been there on the street action just as you have with him. He's the real deal, people. Make no mistake about it. I know at least 12 people on his staff personally. We've been to the studio several times. There is no ulterior motive. These guys are busting their tail 24/7, 365. I know several times we've gone down there on Sunday afternoons. Alex has invited us on the show, and he has at least half the staff working weekends several times. They are doing the best they can to get the media on the right track, to get the information out there to you folks. it's a huge gold mine, and they're offering so much. Just please, I just ask that you support them. And it doesn't have to be our movie. There's several other excellent filmmakers.
Yeah.
Dan Dix from Canada, for instance, recently. Joel Skousen, survival groups,
Yeah.
survival book and video. I mean, the Infowars shop is replete with some of the best information you could ever ask for.
Yeah, I am
so-
a member of Infowars. I like him, and like I said before, he says what I've been saying for a long time. So I'm not listening to Alex Jones. Like I said, I'm just being
Right.
validated by him. But okay, so to continue on with the discussion. Okay, so a little bit during the break, we were talking about it, just putting it as perhaps as as concisely as it can be put. Why did they bomb the federal building? Why did the powers that be want that building?
Okay, there were actually three things going on. Number one, that the ATF and their massive screw up on the Ruby Ridge debacle, as well as Waco on April 19 of 1993. The ATF, actually in May of 1995, their funding was due to be cut in a congressional motion, and there was going to be a law passed. Their funding was actually going to be cut at the end of the fiscal year, in June 30th of that year. ATF literally was going to cease to exist, and so they were trying to remunerate themselves. Say, hey, let's try to stage another operation here to really make ourselves look good, Hollywood style. And it was catastrophic, even worse than obviously Waco. And then, of course, there was a huge drug smuggling operation. A faction of what we were able to gather is the Medellin cartel. Huge pipeline of drugs coming in from Laredo through Dallas, through Oklahoma City, and up to Canada, in Twin Cities in Minneapolis and Canada. That whole, there was a big drug case that was in federal court at the courthouse across the street that was due to actually go to court in the middle of May. All of the contraband and the drugs and the cash and everything was stored in the Murrah building. And then, of course, we have credible reason to believe that the Whitewater papers that were going to bring down the Clintons, both Hillary and Bill Clinton, for laundering money on the Whitewater real estate deals and the drug smuggling through Mena, Arkansas. All of those documents were in the Murrah building. So there were quite a few people. It was a kind of a concentric gathering of different groups that wanted that building to come down, have those records destroyed, the drugs and the contraband and so forth destroyed. So it was, my God, it was a perfect storm of disaster.
So, okay, like what you just said there is exactly the reason why the World Trade Centers were brought down.
Yes, exactly.
Right, like, because these buildings just held, paperwork. In the videos, probably, the architects and engineers video DVDs that I watched, also the owner, I believe, of the buildings was losing money.
Oh yeah, it was
Because
what was his name? Silverstein, right?
Right, and the floors were like empty, and he could save a bunch of money if they just got rid of them, and so right, that's the exact same reason why they took the World Trade Centers down.
Right, and there's similar I guess operations going on there. What we were able to find out on Oklahoma City was that hold on one second. I had to step away there for a second. It was these three groups, and then of course the ATF trying to save face. They wanted to have a Hollywood style, save at the last minute and so forth. But the cast of characters, so to speak, involved. McVeigh working for the CIA, taking his orders from Larry Potts, who was number 2 in command, deputy commander of the FBI at the time. Just a cacophony of disaster there. Miscommunication and ego wars and turf wars between the FBI and the ATF and the DEA. These guys didn't want to give each other credit. It was just a massive ego war.
Yeah.
So it was just a catastrophic waterfall of disaster that was going on, and the lack that the intel wasn't shared is what really threw it off, and that's what made it go forward.
Say that last part again. The intel.
Okay, the intel was not shared
Okay.
by the ATF and the FBI and the DEA and the CIA. Okay, and that's what made it. It was just a complete breakdown of communication. People were getting misinformation. We know that there were as early as between 4 and 6 that morning. There was a big traffic stop checking for cars with explosives east of downtown, about 10 blocks, not far from the fairgrounds. Well, that whole thing pretty much was called off at around 6 a.m. So everybody, the law enforcement pretty much stood down and went home, and lo and behold, all hell broke loose at 2 minutes after 9.
So, right. I mean, like, then why else would they be looking for explosives before the building even blew up?
Exactly. Now, here's the thing. This goes back to the storyline I told you when we were on break. The building was supposed to be blown up at 9 o'clock in the evening. At 9 p.m. on April 18th, Larry Potts gave McVeigh the orders to go live, and he wanted a body count at 9 o'clock on the morning of 19th. This is coming from the number 2 guy in the FBI.
I mean, yeah, it's, I mean, and where else do you get your information other than the people that were there? I mean,
Exactly.
Who else are you going to listen to?
Yep. Yeah, and we found this out through local, county, state, and federal law enforcement.
And these people have no reason to be lying or making any of this stuff up.
No. In fact, they wanted the truth to come out.
Right.
Because, like I said, it's something we animated before we talked, off the air here, was that you have your friends, your relatives, people that you've known, you've gone to school with, college with, or whatever, and you see them killed in cold blood. Of course, you want the truth to come out. It was the top dogs out of Washington that didn't have any personal interest or any vested interest in making sure the truth came out. Those are the ones that marched in, that flew in on the presidential fleet into Tinker Air Force Base, and said, "Look, that's this is going to be your narrative, and this is what you're going to follow these marching orders." We had interesting. What was her name? She was Deputy Attorney General. She was the only female that signed off on the 9/11 Commission. I forgot her name, but she was working with Hillary Clinton and Janet Reno. And I'd have to go back to the 9/11 report. I don't have that here on my bookshelf right now, the commission report. But she's calling into the Oklahoma County DA's office within 48 hours after the bombing. She's on speakerphone with our DA, as well as several of his assistants and the paralegals and their top attorneys, screaming at the top of her lungs, telling exactly what the DA was going to do and how things were going to be investigated. You talk about the height of arrogance and audacity and the hubris. It's like, who are these people going to, start telling us locally what to do here?
Exactly.
That's how sensitive this case was.
Well, I mean, again, it's like it's their behaviors and their actions just show their guilt.
Exactly.
I mean, it's all just like right there, and it's like the more they try to hide it, with that, with their attitude of like, okay, we're here, we're going to take over. And they're trying to, hide everything by doing that. The more they're actually, showing their guilt.
Right. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier in the interview. Some of the correspondence that I got to read that McVeigh was shuffling between himself and sending to his legal counsel, Stephen Jones, and we're able to get this from the archives down in Texas. I'm not going to name names of where it is, but it was 104 boxes of legal documents that Jones had accumulated over the course that he was defense counsel for McVeigh. And McVeigh was writing in the margin notes, basically trying to hit upon some of the female prosecutors. Thought he was a real debonair, just sick. But stuff, he went from depressed to excited to profane to wanting to kill himself over the course of about 30 days that I saw this correspondence. His attorneys didn't even know who the hell he was. And he worked for the CIA. They knew that. But getting back to the mind control aspect, he was under quite a bit of pressure, probably just to keep his mouth shut and be the good soldier.
Exactly. I mean, something's got to give. You can't just keep, putting all this pressure and it's just nature can't be screwed with. I mean, nature is always going to tell the truth. I mean, even like that's what the truth is going to just come out eventually. I mean, even if you pay people, manipulate, intimidate people into submission, into carrying on your lie, your staged, whatever it is that the powers that be want to stage. I mean, people can't control. You can't control even your own body.
That's right.
You can't force and that's the real fact of it all. And then they want to make people like criminal. They want to make nature a criminal because it can't be controlled.
Exactly.
I mean, that's how psychotic the world has become. How psychotic the powers that be have become.
It wasn't until I was able to read those documents that I fully understood who McVeigh was, at least in a better sense, beyond anything that I ever read in any of these stock books. Or, they had those two writers from the Buffalo News that claimed that they had the official story. Well, that was the biggest piece of crap that I ever read in my life. It was so far gone from who McVeigh was and what he said and what he claimed to have said and so forth. And one of the guys, the writers we found out worked for the CIA, so it was manipulated from the word go. I apologize, ladies. I do have to wrap up the interview here. Hopefully we'll have another opportunity to talk.
I mean, definitely. You stayed on for a good lengthy time, and I
appreciate the invite.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate all your information and your education and your enlightenment of this situation, and we gotta shake people up a bit and get them to step up. Because
right.
Most people's true meaning and purpose in life is a lot greater than anything that the system is going to have you believe about yourself.
Just take control of who you are, and just try to do the best you can with what you have, and be good. Always have a good intention and a good spirit, and you're gonna be that much farther ahead than most people, because they don't know how. Number one, they don't have the desire to do that. Number two, they don't have the tools. But purchase the movie, and there are a lot of other good ones out there. But once you watch State of Mind and A Noble Lie, you'll get we're empowering people to think for themselves and get the information. Do your independent research, and you're already going to make a difference. Don't ever doubt that. So never underestimate the power of one.
Amen.
Thanks a lot, Catherine. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. You have a good evening.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
So that was Chris Emery, co-producer, A Noble Lie and State of Mind, the Psychology of Mind Control documentary. And I wanted to take the last just slightly over 10 minutes that we have, and I wanted to play, it's just under 5 minutes, a video that I took Saturday at the second protest against the war on Syria, where Deborah Sweet of the WorldCan'tWait.org organization, and then Eve Ensler, who's a big activist and the writer of the Vagina Monologue, spoke. So I'm just going to play a short clip. It starts out with Deborah Sweet, and people. It was pretty good. A couple of hundred people attended.
No war on Syria! 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 war of Syria. Mic check! Mic check! Mic check! Mic check! Mic check! Mic check! We're here today! We're here today! In the center! In the center of Times Square! Of Times Square! In the biggest empire! In the biggest empire! In history! With the biggest military! With the biggest military! In history! Which is threatening a strike! Which is threatening a strike! On the people of Syria! On the people of Syria! We're here to say no! We're here to say no! Not in our name! Not in our name! Not from our hearts! Not from our hearts! Not from our heads! Not from our heads! Not from our hands! Not from our hands! We say no! We say no! Today! Today! We have a very special friend! We have a very special friend! Who's joined us! Who's joined us! The author! The author! Of Vagina Monologue! Of Vagina Monologue! It's Eve Ensler! It's Eve Ensler! Hi everyone! Hi everyone! I'm glad that we're here! I'm glad that we're here! I wish we didn't have to be! I wish we didn't have to be! I feel like it's Groundhog's Day! I feel like it's Groundhog's Day! I was here for the first Iraq War! I was here for the first Iraq War! Times Square! Times Square! And the second Iraq War! And the second Iraq War! And Afghanistan! And Afghanistan! We're here today in opposite worlds! We're here today in opposite worlds! Where bombing is a lesson! Where bombing is a lesson! And punishment is a cure! And punishment is a cure! Where saving Obama's face is more important than saving lives! Where saving Obama's face is more important than saving lives! Where there's information but no facts! Where there's information but no facts! Where the president goes it alone! Where the president goes it alone! Without allies! Without law! Without law! Without disclosing evidence! Without disclosing evidence! Without a long-term vision! Without a long-term vision! And without the people who put him there! And without the people who put him there! Yes, we can! Yes, we can! Yes, I will, no matter what or who! Because yes, I will, no matter what or who! When the war keeps morphing! When the war keeps morphing! Depending on whose hands it's in! Depending on whose hands it's in! U.S. policing chemical weapons! U.S. policing chemical weapons! Even though the U.S. dropped chemical weapons on Fallujah! Even though the U.S. dropped chemical weapons on Fallujah! Where humanity is occasional, convenient, and righteous! Where humanity is occasional, convenient, and righteous! Where death by chemicals is suddenly real death! Where death by chemicals is suddenly real death! When the 6 million killed in Congo by machetes neglect! When the 6 million killed in Congo by machetes! And because of aid from the U.S. Because of aid from the U.S. Don't exist! Don't exist! Where red lines are painted in boy jingo! Where red lines are painted in boy jingo! And shift like lies and attention! And shift like lies and attention! Bombs are not signals! Bombs are not signals! They are bombs! They are bombs! They don't deliver messages! They don't deliver messages! They kill people! They kill people! They invade people! They invade people! Terrorize them! Terrorize them! And eventually piss them off! And eventually piss them off! Bombs are not signals! Bombs are not signals! They are bombs! They are bombs! And you don't get to use them in our name! You don't get to use them in our name! No bombs! No bombs! No strikes! No strikes! Stop the war on Syria! Stop the war on Syria! Thank you! Thank you!
So that was Eve Ensler speaking at it was the second rally. The first rally was Thursday evening, same location, Times Square. A lot of people, a few hundred people showed up at least and marched basically just in the vicinity of Times Square. And actually, mainstream media actually was on hand, which was nice. And this situation because this war on Syria is a big story. So lots going on. The common thread between this link that I just played with Eve Ensler, I wanted to tie it in with the everything that Chris Emery was talking about, is false flag. That's kind of the theme. It's all about false flags. This war on Syria and what Chris was talking about with the noble lie. I mean, everything is just false flag, staged, false information, false media. And I just wanted to kind of, before I wrapped it up, make that point. My YouTube channel is April, like the month, Watters, Watters, and I have a lot of videos that I have not, filled in the description of yet, and because it's so much easier to film than it is to sit at the computer and edit them all. And I have to make myself sit down and do that because I'm falling behind. But anyway, that pretty much wraps it up. Please tune in tomorrow, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, the usual time for Organic News. And I plan on being live in Times Square for the semi-unveiling of the billboard for Architects and Engineers 9/11 Truth. That's a pretty epic step. It's almost like the bringing down of the Berlin Wall. A billboard for 9/11 Truth, Architects and Engineers in Times Square tomorrow. I'm not sure if there's a Facebook event page for that, where actually I believe that there is a Facebook event page where people can check and find out the exact time. And so with that, I hope to have people listening in and tuning in tomorrow evening. So you have to practice telling the truth. Practice listening to your body. We've been disconnected from the truth. The truth is in your body. Don't be afraid to just know what you know. Support people in knowing what they know. We have to start coming together. People have been divided too much. Families. There's too much division among people. We need to come together and know who the real enemy is.
You're listening to Awake Radio, straight talk for the awake and aware.